Welcome everybody. EB, our moderator, is just having a few technical difficulties, but he'll join us shortly and take over the realm here. But introduce myself and go around the room here. I'm Janice Luck, co-director of athletics, head women's basketball coach, and also an Albright alum. I played field hockey and basketball while I was here. Rick, do you want to go?
Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Ferry. I'm co-athletic director and head men's basketball coach, and I am in my 20th year at Albright.
John, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Hi, John Marska. I'm the head football coach. I've been here 14 years at Albright College.
Thank you. AJ.
How you doing? Armand or AJ. I'm a member of the football team. I'm a senior here at Albright.
Sean.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Brzezinski, currently the project coordinator of the DOJ grant. I also am an alumni. I graduated in 2014, and I'm also one of the assistant basketball coaches.
Okay, Amina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amina. I'm a member of the women's basketball team, and I'm also a junior.
Okay, President Fetro.
Hi, everyone, and welcome today. I am President Fetro, also professor of chemistry and biochemistry, and I have been here for 3 years at Albright, though I am also like Sean, a proud alumna of this college.
For those of you who have been on some of our other Zoom panel discussions for racial healing, the topic of this particular discussion is race and sport at Albright College. And we brought in our student athletes, administrators, coaches, alumni to talk about what that means to them from what they have experienced in their own lives, what's happening on a national stage, and how we can work together as a community to have an open discussion about how to make things good for all and better, learning from the past, the present, and taking all those things so that we can have a better future for everyone, especially our Black student athletes. So I guess I will go ahead and start with some of the questions. If EB jumps on, he can jump in if he needs to, if we've missed anything. So the first question for everyone here on the panel is, how would you describe the relationship between race and sports at Albright from your angle? So, oh, is that you, Evie?
Yeah.
Okay, I just threw out the first question for you, but if you wanted to jump in, you may.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry, but halfway through, my audio just like totally blacked out on me. Yeah, so you said you already asked the first question?
Yeah, I set the stage a little to our listeners and attendees, and kind of a little bit of the why. And I just read the first question and was going to throw it around. I don't know if you had a specific order you wanted to go in.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think since you already asked the first question, let's just jump into it, yeah?
Okay, that sounds good. So Amina, do you want to talk about what the relationship between race and sports at Albright means to you?
I think that the relationship between race and sports is actually quite important because, like, a lot of athletes are like people of color or students of color or whatever. So it's very important for us to make sure that our voices are heard and that we're basically just treated the same as everybody else.
Rick, do you want to go next?
Sure. So, with race in sports, I think it's, as Amina said, it's very important, and we have a lot of students of color, and it's an ongoing, evolving process, and one that's steeped in education. And the education really flows both ways: sports to race, and race to sports. And I think we've had a little bit of a handle on it, and I think events over the past several months have really shown a greater spotlight on it, and have made us increase the awareness for everybody. And I think it's really helped a lot, from the coaching perspective, because it's allowed us to see and hear more voices, and understand different perspectives. And even though we think we know things, we don't know everything. And the great thing about working at a college, and there's always education going on, and it's not, and the classroom education is just a small part of that. And so much of it happens everywhere else. And the relationship between race and sports is a great example of that. And it's one that we're all really learning a lot about. And it's helping us a lot. And we have a ways to go, but we are getting there.
Great. Sean, do you want to talk about that question?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of piggyback off of Coach Ferry, the importance of sports and race, it's at a very high level. It's sometimes one of the only ways people meet people who have different cultural backgrounds, and it's one of the best ways to be inclusive. Being an athlete all my life, I literally met so many people from different backgrounds. So, it's not always the negative or something bad that can relate to it. I think that there's so much within race and sports, and the connections that you can make as well. It is important when people have the capability and use their platform to use their voice. And I think that is huge within sports, because sports are so culturally sound. Everyone loves sports, whether it's football, soccer, basketball, the list goes on. And that's one of the ways that we actually come together. So I think that it's definitely it goes hand in hand. I agree that I think with everything that's been happening recently in the world, with the events, the ability to have open spaces to speak on it, it's so important. And everything that's been happening in the world that correlates to sports and race, with the protests and everything like that, I think it's essential, because it's eye-opening for a lot of people, and people are being educated culturally and personally and individually as well.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I agree. And something that Sean just said that, really strikes a chord with me. The opportunity to meet people of different backgrounds, a lot of people only have that opportunity through their involvement in sport, or that's their first opportunity very often. And as an example, I grew up in the inner city, and I had a very diverse inner city high school I went to, and college and high school football team. Contrast that, when I first arrived at Albright, we only had 5% students of color on our team. In the first year I was here. Contrast that today, we're at 52% students of color on our team, and so it's much more representative of the student body and our society, quite frankly. I always view the football field as an extension of the classroom, and our classroom just happens to be 100 yards long and 53 1/3 yards wide, and has goalposts at either end. But the lessons you can learn and the qualities you can develop on the field are as valuable as anything that can be taught in the classroom. And quite honestly, with what has come to the forefront, particularly this summer, it has opened up the dialogue, on race, particularly, within our team. This summer, and through one-on-one conversations and team meetings, and I'm looking at this as part of the education process, and it's something that maybe we just took for granted or we overlooked in the past, but it's something that I think everyone has to be educated on, including our staff and our faculty, and I think this open dialogue helps that process.
Thank you. President Fetro?
Sure. I want to reiterate what a number of other folks have said, starting with Amina, that this relationship between race and sport is extremely important. As Sean and John said, the athletics is a real place where people can interact with folks from different cultural backgrounds. And what a few of the others have said, so I'm not really saying anything new, as a college, we must continue to learn. This must be part of our learning. We need to continue to bring what we are learning to the light, to use it in our dialogue, in our coaching, in our conversations in and outside the classroom, so we can continue to learn and to grow together. This is an incredibly important topic, and Evie, I want to thank you for organizing it, and Janice.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I would agree with what everyone has said here, and I would also add that the events that have happened over the past few months has been eye-opening to me, because I always saw myself as someone that welcomed all, and you know, it was a place of common ground, like Sean had mentioned, and you know, maybe had a little ignorance. We're not recognizing that you know, that I do have student athletes on my team that are Black student athletes that may be affected differently than some of the white student athletes with the recent events. So I learned a lot, and I wouldn't have learned that if I wasn't involved in athletics and coaching and higher education. So I'm thankful for it, and I think that it's a much deeper relationship that that I didn't realize in the past and maybe did take for granted. So I think it's great that we can have this discussion.
I think the student
Thank
voice
you,
is
Janice.
really important. Can we hear from AJ on this question?
Go ahead, AJ.
So basically, to reiterate what everyone else has said, I think it's very important, the relationship between race and sports here at Albright, especially with, like, as Coach Marcel was saying, like the increase in Black student athletes you see coming here on campus, and how, like, coming here, this may be people's first, like, exposure to that more diverse culture, because people at home might come from, like, not so diverse culture, like, depending, like, my high school was pretty diverse, but I can't say that for everyone here, so this might be their first exposure. I feel like everyone just needs to stay open to learning and not being so ignorant, and realize that this is deeper than the sport you play, and that that is just deeper than the sport you play. Like, at football, we always say, like, the football field is a perfect world. Like, when you go in there, no one cares about your skin color or where you come from, your culture, and none of that. But then at the same time, I feel like we need to realize that it goes deeper than that. Once you step off the field, it should be a perfect world too, that it doesn't just apply to when we're playing that sport.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Janice, I'm not sure if you were able to introduce the panelists.
Yes, we went around and had everyone introduce themselves, and you're the only one I didn't introduce, so.
Well, that's good. I'm Chaplain Evie. You can simply call me Evie. I'm one of the interim chaplains here at Albright, and this is our third panel discussion. I'm not sure if Janice mentioned it or not, but a big part of why we're focusing today's discussion on race and sports at Albright is basically as a response to some of the protests that have been happening that have been led by players and teams of almost all of the major National League sports, and many institutions across the country are taking self-inventories, having conversations and actions on how they can better support the relationship around race and sport in those institutions, and that's why we are having this discussion today. And I want to thank you, Janet, for stepping in. I appreciate it.
I want to kind of transition the conversation to another question. And if you see me looking here, because I have a second screen, that's where I have some of my questions. And so I'm not ignoring you. I'm just looking at my screen so I can ask you the question. As I've mentioned, this is in a way a response to some of the protests that major teams and players have led. How do you think those protests, how do you think they have impacted our teams, our players, and how have you, the coaches, the players, how have you responded to that? And anyone can just feel free to take a stab at this. Yeah.
I will jump in. As athletic directors, we first opened the discussion up late spring when things were really starting to unfold in the media, and spoke to our coaches about it to see what they were hearing from students and if there was any way we could support them or things that they need, and encourage those coaches to reach out to their students. It was a very difficult time for everyone, especially since we were remote and home and finished school, to have contact with all the students, but to have our coaches reach out to their teams and their athletes to see how they were doing, how we could support them, and how they were feeling. And I know specifically with my team, we did that. Our team had an open discussion about things that were happening as far as race and police brutality and different things, and how they feel and how they may be affected, regardless of who they were, where they came from. Just an open discussion. So one way that it affected us and what we did is we started a conversation that probably should have started a long time ago.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and just
anyone else?
To piggyback on that, with the conversations with our teams, it was a real, with basketball, we had a real healthy dialogue within our team, and just to kind of just get everything out in the open and see where everyone was thinking, and it was really good to have those conversations, which you just don't have, and now I think now that professional teams have started, and most of the major sports have played, and we've seen what they're doing. Now there's like with anything with professional sports, there's a trickle down effect, and whether it's how they play or what they wear, now it's how do they protest, and I think so many younger athletes take their cues from that, and so coach, can we get a shirt that has some unifying message on it? Topics like that, because they see what the NBA guys are wearing, and I think it's really been done in my opinion, it's been done very well at the professional level, and now that's given a lot of good modeling for our athletes and for them to have ideas to move forward.
And Evie, I'd like to take Rick's answer up a level as students and student athletes are asking what they might do. One of the really important things that I think Albright College has done under the leadership of Site-C over like about a year or longer process, the discussion and dialogue about an expression statement. And that expression statement was ultimately endorsed by both the faculty of the college and the board of trustees of the college in February. And that expression is very clear. We are an educational community. We are engaging with students to learn to have their voice, as long as it does not express hatred for a group of people as a group. But that voice is so important. So I applaud that the students are asking that question. That's what a good liberal arts education is about. And I'm glad that the coaches and the ADs are supporting that, and with the backing of the college and this statement.
Thank you, Jackie. Before the rest of you answered that question. I just want to remind you, you can send your questions to us. You can send it to the host or to all panelists, and I will see those questions, and I will ask those questions to our panelists. We've already had a couple questions from some students. I want to encourage you to please send in your questions. I mentioned earlier, or was going to mention earlier, that you're not just an audience, you're a participant, and I would love for you to engage us with your questions throughout this discussion. Yeah, John, John, Sean, AJ, and Amina, if y'all want to take a try at that question.
Yeah, so as has already been stated, we held a team meeting over the summer virtually, and with 100 people, with coaches, 110 on a Zoom call, we felt critical that we divide up into smaller groups. And so I enlisted the help of our leadership council, and between our coaches and our leadership council, we broke into small breakout rooms using the randomizer here on Zoom. And so we had groups of 6, 8, 10 student athletes and coaches in each room to have more personal, intimate discussions. And the feedback that I got from our players was that was very positive in each of those breakout rooms. But then from my standpoint, I spent the next 2 weeks and spoke personally with the majority of the players on the team, just one-on-one FaceTime conversations to help me better understand. And that was extremely valuable for me from an educational standpoint, just to listen to our guys and as how things were affecting them and what their thoughts were and what their fears were and the issues that they face in life. And we came back, we had a team meeting, we did an exercise called Valuing the Differences. And to be an effective team, you can't tolerate differences, you've got to value them if you want to synergize, where the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. And so this conversation has started. I think it's got to continue. The challenge we face with this pandemic is there's a balance between face to face and how much time you spend with each other and things like that. But I think it's something that we're off to a good start, but I think it's got to continue.
Everyone said and hit all the points on the head. I think that conversations can be so uncomfortable, but I think that there's so much growth within the uncomfortableness. And that's kind of like the biggest part of it. Like, this was heavy, this was hard this summer. And, having those conversations, like, I valued that, even knowing like how uncomfortable it could be for so many people. There's just so much you can learn from that, and understanding that someone feels exactly the same way as you or doesn't fully understand, but hearing your side, like you are bringing that education to them. So I think that was really big in that part. And also, like, personally, there was in the community, there was a like run walk, and there were a bunch of coaches that were there, and it was just amazing because it correlated to what happened to George this summer. And it was just cool to see so many people, not just us coaches, but also people in the community all coming together for something like that. And having those conversations, like, I've had conversations with some of the other coaches about everything that's going on, and it's amazing how strong you can make relationships with people, knowing that you feel a certain way and they do too, and they hear you. So also, like, being able to do that with the students, I know not even just with sports, but also, holding like safe spaces and brave spaces where people know that they can express themselves. They're not going to be judged if they're crying, if they're angry, or if they don't know what to do, and knowing that they have people like that, especially when it comes to sports. Your coaches are people, like, these students look up to you. They want to know what you think, if you support them, like, the list goes on and on. So it's just amazing to hear that these conversations have been happening and all the growth that we're going to continue to do.
I think this, like the recent protests and stuff impacted coaches and players, but I feel like in a way it was always already there. So like for the Black community, I don't feel like it impacted us as much because it's something we see more often and pay more attention to. But I feel like the events that happened this summer kind of forced like the coaches and all the staff here to reach out and set up those conversations, which I believe Coach Ferry said, but or maybe Coach Luck. Well, somebody said that it should have happened a long time ago, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I guess I'm glad it happened so we could get those things out in the air. But as I was saying, I think these events is kind of what like broadcasted everything that was going on and really put it like a light on it. So it's shown everybody that we need to have these type of discussions. And as Coach Mark said, we did have like various meetings. He called everyone. We had the breakout rooms. I feel like those were more effective because some people don't like talking in such large groups. They feel more comfortable speaking in smaller control groups where, I don't know, I guess some people's preferences, but at the end of the day, I feel like it was all a matter of the question is like, is all of our teammates there supporting us and here for us and hearing us, and is all the coaches there supporting us, there for hearing us? So I feel like that was good in that aspect to get that sort of reassurance.
Just to reiterate what mostly everyone was saying, I think the events over the summer were very eye-opening for people who aren't Black or people of non-color, because like Armand said, like this is a reality we've had to face for a very long time. And I think like it's very essential for everyone to be mindful of how they treat people, and especially in these times, because people are like very sensitive. And that just because sometimes when people say things, it's like it's more like subconscious and they don't really think about it or think about other people's feelings. But it's definitely something that we should definitely be more vocal about, and have a very open discussion and try not to be uncomfortable, because it's a normal, and try to normalize talking about like our feelings and about things that we face on a regular day basis.
There we go. Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask a question. After this question, I'll pause and ask you some of the questions that our participants have been sending. So here's my next question, and I would definitely love each of you to answer this from your area. How are you or your team or your department, how are you actively combating racism and prejudice? I can say at Albright, or maybe in just your team or your circle.
I'll start. For athletics in general, we have a student athletic advisory council, and we have added a position in the, I guess, executive board of that group that is solely for, you know, a diverse student athlete. So regardless of who the other two, you know, executive board members are, there will always be a spot reserved for a leadership role for student of color or diverse background. And that is a way to make sure that you have a seat at the table and that there is a voice from a representative group of our student athletes. And that's just a way through the student, that's a group, if those of you that are on there, I'm not sure what it is, it's a group of student athletes representing all the different teams on campus, and they discuss issues they may be going through. They do community service projects, and they also talk about NCAA legislation or other hot topics that may be going through the NCAA, up from the college level through to the conference level, and then again to the national level. So we're making sure that it's more representative group that matches our student body. So there's a voice.
Another thing we've done is we have partnered with the political science department and started a voting initiative with the goal of getting 100% participation in the November general election. So we are in the process of educating everybody on getting registered, how to get absentee ballots, and then we will be very shortly announcing a seminar with one of our professors on general education in regard to voting and how to do it, what it means, not just presidential, but local government, and expressing the importance of everybody having a voice and a voice that counts.
So, in addition to this, the vote initiative, I've had several of our players have come to me with ideas here over these last several weeks, and all of them involved becoming active in the community, doing some work with underprivileged kids in the Reading area, and we've done these things over the years with 13th and Union Elementary School reading program and Northeast Middle School with the principal there, Alex Brown, Boys and Girls Club at Olivet, a free youth camp. The problem that we face right now is with COVID, we can't get our foot in the door, at any of these places. But I reached out, and AJ isn't aware of this yet, but I reached out to the head coach at Alvernia. We've had a lot of discussions about things, and he and I would like to partner together our program with his program in a stand together against racism, and do some things within the community because we are so close to them. But again, we kind of feel like we've got to wait for this pandemic to subside to be able to get ourselves out there, and so that becomes part of the challenge with some of those things. But those are the discussions that we've been having.
From the college level, EB, this year for the first time, the college has set college-wide annual goals. The first one of those this year is to instill an active commitment to Albright's inclusivity and equity statement, instill that commitment into Albright's broader community, including expanding Albright Excellence to include equity and diversity programs, including implicit bias and specific hiring practices, some of which will be required of all employees. Cabinet members have committed to partnering with SiteSeed to enhance SiteSeed program participation and to examine policies and procedures and practices and outcomes to ensure that those align with our inclusivity and equity statement that was endorsed last year. Of course, that's just a broad goal with a couple of metrics, and it doesn't happen unless each member of the community commits to it. So each cabinet member, including the athletic directors here, are going through their reflective self-evaluation process and annual goal setting. And as part of that annual goal setting, each will be required to set a goal or goals around this particular, the diversity, equity, and racism issue. And so those goals will be set at the cabinet level and hopefully beyond. So we will be having specific specific goals and actions at least at the cabinet level and hopefully beyond.
And I know that a lot of the professional sports, like we had mentioned in the last question, have been using their voice, whether it's on their helmets or their jerseys or on their court. And unfortunately this fall, there is no competitions for any of the sports except esports. And I would love to hear from AJ and Amina on things that maybe you and your teammates or other athletes have discussed in regards to maybe what your initiatives might be or ideas that you had.
Like just in general, like being like bigger voices on campus, as in like, if you see something, say something, like calling people out on like, whether it's a racist comment or it's ignorant, just being a bigger voice than what we already are, because we are athletes and we're technically like the face of like Albright athletics type. So definitely being more vocal, especially with people who aren't educated and who don't really want to educate themselves.
Yeah, kind of everything Amina just said and being more vocal. Another thing I know, like on the football team, discussed mostly like just there's no competition this fall, but it's obviously been discussed about kneeling during the anthem and stuff like that as a sign to like help like a passive protest against fighting like racial injustice and making a stand for it. I know everyone has different ideas of what they want to do, and we talk about it from time to time, and why there's no fall competition. So we'll figure it out. What everyone wants to do, everybody's free to do what they want to do, how they want to voice their opinion, and all that other stuff.
Sean, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. Mine's more reference to, you know, things that we're doing on campus. I know I had already mentioned a little bit about safe spaces that we've been creating through like Zooms and on Instagram, you know, where students have the capability of speaking about how they feel and interacting with other people. We're going to continuously do that as well. And also Keith Walls is overseeing like multicultural affairs department, and he's going to be doing so much with students, really like pushing for the importance of being culturally aware and emphasizing and celebrating all the different cultures, because it's important to do so. One of the things that I'm going to be pushing for to do on campus is it's called like a privilege walk, and more or less it's having people from all different backgrounds, students, faculty, and staff, you know, you get asked certain questions and you move forward when it correlates to you. It's supposed to be humbling because it reminds you that even though we are different, there are so many similarities at the same time. It's humbling, but it's also eye-opening at the same point. So that'll be happening within the next month or so.
Thank you very much, Sean. So I'm going to pause and ask some questions that that some of our students have sent in. And I want to say a big thank you to Professor Adam Owens, who actually encouraged his entire marketing class to be here today. So thank you. So a couple of these questions, I will be combining two questions as one. And this will probably direct mostly to you, AJ, and Amina, and the rest of our panelists. You can feel free as well to add to that. So the question basically is asking, how do you think what impact can students make when it comes to race and sports, and how can they promote unity in a very diverse, in a very not divisive time like this?
I think just being involved in general, if like there are like things that come up on campus that like say like probably like next Saturday is like a protest, and if like I feel like as long as like people like
do you say there's a protest next Saturday?
Yeah, on the 26th.
It's this.
So I think that as long as people are getting involved and actually a part of the conversation, that's the way they can definitely have an impact on the race and sport relationship and culture at Albright, for sure.
Yeah, kind of agree with that. Just not being silent, I guess, and not being ignorant and open to learning and trying to be more understanding, and like Amina said, being more involved, whether that's just being at the protest or not asking everyone to go above and beyond, just little things that we know you're there to support, stuff like that. I think all those little things can go a long way.
Awesome. Would anyone else like to add to that? Okay, so I'm going to be asking, we've been receiving some questions, and I'd like to read some part of this question. In fact, this question was in my original question, and I'm just going to summarize it. So in the fall of 2017, I believe it was around October or so in 2017. Some of our students were dismissed from our football program, and that made national news. If you're at Albright at the time, you know exactly what I'm referring to. Jackie, I know you led the investigation at that time, so I'll first invite you to share share what happened, and then John, the football coach, underwent, you know, the football coach at the time, still the football coach when this thing happened, if you can add to that as well.
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, EB. And I appreciate the good question from the attendees, because this is a very important issue. So just some of the facts. The football team in spring or fall of 2017 agreed on a way of unity in protesting. And when they went onto the field, 3 students did not follow what the team had agreed to. They went against the team rules. One of those students knelt to express protest, and 2 students did not kneel. And John followed the team rules. The coach followed the team rules and kicked both players off the team. Of course, this was picked up by the media as kicking a student off the team for kneeling, and that was true for one of the students and not true for the others. I immediately began an investigation, and I talked to the student athletes at the time, both those on the football team directly involved and those not. I talked to coaches. I talked to the 3 students involved and their parents. And I learned a ton. This was I was about 4 months into my presidency. This was a huge learning experience for me. And I ultimately ended up overturning Coach Marska's decision and offering reinstatement to all 3 players. 2 of the players accepted and 1 chose not to. It was a huge learning experience for me. I want to state that it led directly to some of the work that CITESY has been doing, and I shared earlier about our work as a community to develop our expression statement. It led directly to that work, because what the athletic directors and coaches shared is this needs to be part of the institutional statement, not what a decision in individual hands, and we worked as a community to make that so, and I'm proud of the community for doing that. Coach, I know I learned a lot. I bet you also have learned a lot with the passage of time, and I would welcome your reflections as well.
Yeah, it certainly, it was extremely educational, and you know, over 14 years we've operated with a leadership council that the team elects, and our captains are elected from the leadership council. And it has been always past practice that whenever there were, you know, issues like this, like I guess things that you couldn't have anticipated 10 years ago or 5 years ago, and how do you handle them? And there were no rules or guidelines in place institutionally at that time. We went to the leadership council. The leadership council had a 2.5-hour discussion, made a decision. Let's all come together and let's be united in this. And you know, took it to the team, and we certainly thought this could be a tremendous opportunity for us if it went well. But even though the leadership council was unanimous, and I think AJ was on that council at the time, yeah, I was uneasy about it, because I also knew that if this is not 100%, this could go very bad. And you know, I had conversations with Rick about it, and with President Fetro about it ahead of time, and it did go bad, you know. And what I learned from the investigation and the conversations that came out from conversations with the family, I came to realize that this was way too big of an issue for a group of 18 to 21-year-old kids to solve in a Saturday afternoon. And there were issues that went very, very deep. And putting people in a position where they've got to choose loyalty to family or loyalty to a team is not a healthy thing. And I'm grateful that now, as a result of this, there is a policy in place that President Fetro had declared that, you know, any student is free to do whatever they want to do, you know, at that time, and the team can't decide it, the captains can't decide it, the leadership council can't decide it, and, you know, and in light of that, that's our policy. And you know, it was certainly eye-opening for me, and it was tough for all of us, for our program. But I think, again, everything is an educational opportunity if you allow it to be. I think we learned a lot from it, and I think we're better off because of what we've learned.
Now, you said AJ was part of the team, right, at the time. In fact, AJ, I believe John said you were part of the leadership council.
Yeah, I was.
Okay. I want to hear from you and also from Rick, and then we are running out of time. I have a couple more questions that I'd like us to get to before we come to the end of today's discussion.
Okay, so I was a freshman at the time. I was elected to the leadership council, so I was there when we discussed what we would wanted to do and all that other stuff. And I feel like something that kind of gets overlooked is like, yeah, the kids, they were kicked off the team, but I feel like it's looked at, they were kicked off because they were protesting against racial injustice, when that's really not the case. But I feel like it's so easy to think that's the case when you look at it from the outside and you don't really know, you weren't there to know what we discussed and to what was actually going on. So that's why I feel like whenever this comes up, obviously this question of what happened back in 2017 is going to come up and how is things different. But in reality, I feel like it wasn't, they weren't kicked off over like the racial injustice and the way they chose to protest. It was more so, it wasn't Coach Marks's intent to make it like that. You know, I feel like he just wanted, whatever we did, we just wanted to do it like united. We wanted to be as one. We wanted to be as a team. So, I mean, at the time I was 18, so I don't know. I wasn't as vocal. I thought we came to a good conclusion, but like now listening to Coach Marks, I do realize that having that group of 18 probably was not a good idea to make a decision for the whole team. But at the time, I mean, people were offered to, we met as a leadership council and we met as a team where these same ideas were presented to everyone, and people were offered the opportunity to speak up and voice their opinion too that aren't on the leadership council. I feel like no one did. So that's why we kind of continued on with what we had planned. So when they went against it, it kind of was like, well, like, what are you doing? Because they didn't really say anything. So, but it definitely was learning, like an eye-opening experience. And now that we have the policy where you can do whatever you want, and Coach Marska, all of the other coaches, they have made that clear as all of this was going on, so people don't have to, like, I guess, worry, like, especially like people that weren't here, because I'm pretty sure like me and like 3 other guys are the only ones that were here to know what it was like. So they don't have to worry about what would happen if they were to take a knee, so, or choose to protest in whatever way they want to. There's no worry. You can do whatever you want. Everyone's free to protest in their own way. And it's not going to change anything between us. No one's going to look at you differently, stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Rick. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I would say, you know, knowing what we knew in 2017, as we being involved in it in every step of the way, our decision-making processes and Coach Marska's decision-making processes were really sound. You know, and you know, looking back on it with a 2020 lens, it's easy to look back and say, wait, maybe we should have been more open-minded. Maybe we should have thought a little differently. And I compare it to how Colin Kaepernick's viewed. You know, in 2017, the lens of 2017, favorably across the board. But I think if you look at it now in 2020, I mean, he was, while understood by a lot of people then, he was misunderstood by a lot of people, and now he's really understood across the board. And so I think, you wish you could, in so many things in life, you wish you could take a lens when you're older and put it back and look at things a little differently. As I said at the beginning, I thought our decision making was really sound, and now you just wish you had a broader scope and could understand things a little better, with which events of the past several months have brought to light for us.
Yeah, well, that set me up well for my next question, which is basically, and this is for everyone. What do you think, now that you wish you knew back then, and how would you handle? And I know we have a policy now in place, but how would you handle something like that moving forward? Let's say if that were to happen, next year or the year after. How would you, as coaches, as directors, administration, students, how would you handle that moving forward?
I would say that discussions are more open now, and it's something that maybe when there was, if there's something in the media that deals with race and sport, I may talk about it amongst my coaching staff, but in the past, I haven't engaged my own student athletes in that conversation. And I think that recent events and events from 2017, whether it be at Albright or nationally, have started that conversation where I now realize that I need to hear everyone's voice regardless of their skin color and their background. And I feel more comfortable having those tougher discussions and making sure that everybody's heard, and no matter what it might be, whether it's a national anthem, whether it is what they want to wear in the uniform or anything, I feel as if that I'm going to have discussions about it before they have to make their decision on their own, and just talk through it as a group and as a team.
In sports, we talk about developing muscle memory, whether it's throwing a ball or swinging a bat or whatever skill it is, you develop a muscle memory, and discussions around race are exactly the same thing. And it's developing muscle memory. The first time anybody shoots a basketball, they're not going to be very good at it. And it takes time and it takes repetitions. And it's the same thing with conversations about race. And it's not, it's like Janice talked about, it's not something that we easily have done in the past, but it's something that we're doing. And the more I do it with different athletes and different people, the first few times it's challenging, and it gets progressively easier because we develop that muscle memory, and it allows us to become more comfortable doing it. And I think that's what we all need to work on.
What I wish I knew then, Evie, I think what you asked is, what do we wish we knew then that we know now?
Then,
yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And how would you handle a similar situation moving forward?
Yeah. I wish I would have known then what I think both AJ and Amina said so well at the beginning of this panel. I wish I had understand the hourly and daily impact that systemic racism has on persons of color in our country and in our college. I wish I had had a deeper appreciation of that then. I think that I have developed that, and as Rick said, and it's a continuing education. I learn something every day. One of the things I'm really pleased about is that so many, because AJ and Amina are right. It's like, come on guys, come on white people. We've been experiencing this every single day. That we've gotten to a point at Albright College, we have a lot of work to do. Like many institutions, we have to work on the systemic racism embedded in our institution. What I'm pleased about is we've gotten to a point that white people are engaging in the conversation and actively taking the time to do that learning. close to 50 people, white people on our campus, have gone to the Whites Confronting Racism workshop, which is a 2.5-day commitment. Most of the cabinet has gone to it at this point, as well as members of the faculty and staff across the college. And this workshop really helps whites to confront what they don't know and to create specific action plans for meeting change. So one of the things that I'm pleased about is that on Albright's campus, white people are beginning to do what is really white's work to help to understand this issue, and not rely on persons of color to teach us. What I would do differently, EB, now is when John and Rick they wouldn't come to me anymore, because the expression statement, students are free within the bounds of the expression statement. This is what they're here for. To engage their voice, to find their voice, to express that voice in the manner which is right for them, as long as it does not express hatred for another person or a group of people because they belong to a group. So with our expression statement, this issue wouldn't come up. I'm sure others that we'll need to address, but this one should not come up, because I would say pay attention to the expression statement, help the students to find their voice.
I'll just add this. I mean, in addition to what I've already said, which I think addresses, answers your question, but I had never met President Fetro before I dragged her into a national controversy. And getting to know her through that, I came to realize what a great leader she is. And had I maybe realized that ahead of time, had I met her beforehand, I may have gone to her before I went to the Leadership Council and, backed their decision to do this. And, maybe we could have found a better solution.
Anyone else? I mean, this is an open question to each of our panelists.
I mean, I was not here during that time frame, so I can't really say. I mean, with the expression statement, like, that's big on that point. The only other thing I would emphasize now, and I know like Albright we will continuously do that, is, the students, they just want to feel supported. That's like one of the biggest things. They just want to know that when there are things that are going on, whether it's race or something else, that like you have someone who has your back like all the time. And in a sports team, that's huge. Like being on a sports team, that's your family. So you just want to feel that, whether it's through the coaches, through your teammates. So, if you felt like you wanted to have something specifically on your jersey, like, it's a conversation, which Coach Luck had already emphasized. It's so important to be able to have discussions, have conversations like this, so you can get to what you are comfortable with, but also that you're supporting and you're supported on every level.
Yeah, I want to thank you. I just got a text that we've passed our time, and the problem with dialogues like this, time goes by really, really fast. So we have another panel discussion coming up in October, and I'll now invite our host to just share the content. So that will be on October 12th. It's also Monday from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And we're going to continue to address issues at our college that deal with race. And I also want to thank our panelists. Thank you for taking time. And I want to thank you, our participants, for being here. Thank you for your questions. We have a lot of questions that we could not get to because of time. We will find a way, either now or perhaps next semester, to answer some of those questions. But I want to thank you all. And I really hope, one of the things I was going to say in the beginning was my hope for these panel discussions is to encourage conversations and dialogues among students, faculty, staff, administrations, and boards at Albright, so we can take actions to make Albright a racially healed college. And I thank you all for being a part of today's dialogue, and hopefully you can join us on October 12th for our fourth racial panel discussion on racial healing and reconciliation. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful night.